I banned a guy for doxing someone in chat. 10 minutes later, my landlord texted me screenshots of my listing on a rental scam page, my exact hallway photo, my unit number, my door peephole, angles I never posted. Then my phone started getting non-stop calls from strangers asking to tour tonight. They used my full name. At first I tried to make it make sense, like maybe he scraped an old profile and got lucky. But the pictures weren't luck. You don't guess the chip in the paint next to my door or the dent in the peephole trim. The scam page looked clean and confident. Rent set low enough to hook desperate people. Move-in ready. Immediate showings. My number listed like I was the one begging for attention. The calls came in waves. Some were polite and anxious. Some were pissed right out of the gate. One woman cried because she thought she finally found something she could afford. I kept saying it was a scam and I was sorry until my throat burned. Then my voicemail filled. Then text started. Then the listing started telling people to text the current tenant for access, which meant my phone became a front desk for some asshole's scam I didn't agree to. I opened Discord and watched my server like a hawk, like this was going to stay contained in a window. Imam Mud. I'm used to trolls. I'm used to threats. This guy had been in chat for weeks, always skirting rules, baiting fights, acting like a king because he knew how to needle people. That night he posted someone's address like it was a joke and I didn't hesitate. Bon. Delete. Report. Done. I didn't even type a warning. Then my landlord's screenshots landed. I called him and he wasn't comforting. He was annoyed, like I'd spilled paint in the hallway. I asked if there'd been showings, maintenance, anything where keys went out. He said no, then changed the subject to the calls blowing up his phone too, like we were both victims of the same inconvenience. I tried to get the listing removed. I emailed the scam address just to see what it would do, and it replied in seconds with a canned line about verifying identity, like it was mocking me. I reported the page to the site. I reported it to a couple of those scam watch forums that feel like screaming into a pillow. I changed passwords, turned on 2FA, nuked old accounts I forgot I even had. None of it slowed the updates. Every time I refreshed, there was something new, like he was timing it to my panic. The worst part was realizing he could see my reactions. He knew when I went quiet. He knew when I started moving differently. I'd stand at my kitchen window and watch the sidewalk, then refresh the page, and 2 minutes later it would add, "He's home today." That's when my brain stopped arguing and just accepted the simple truth. This wasn't someone guessing. This was someone following. That afternoon, I went down to the lobby to grab mail and found two people standing by the intercom, staring at their phones, looking up at the directory, then back down like they were waiting for a sign. I didn't confront them. I just walked past like I belonged and my skin felt too tight for my body. When I got back upstairs, I checked the peephole and kept checking it, like I could will the world back into normal if I stared hard enough. I locked my socials. The page kept updating anyway. My grocery store, my gym, my usual coffee order. The creepiest part was the proof photos, taken from behind me, close enough to catch my shirt wrinkles. He wasn't just online. He was nearby, watching me react. The grocery store post hit first with the exact chain and the exact one I go to, plus the time window. I'm usually there. Then my gym, with a photo taken from just inside the entrance. Then the coffee thing, my order written the way the barista writes it on the cup. That one made my stomach turn because it meant he didn't need anything clever. He just needed to stand close enough to hear me speak. The proof photos weren't dramatic. That's why they worked. Back of my head in line, my hands on a card handle, the collar tag of my shirt, close enough that if I turned fast, I might have seen him. I replayed the last day, and every normal moment turned into a question. Elevator, lobby, sidewalk, a shoulder brush in an aisle. I even changed my route to the store like that mattered. Took side streets, kept my head down. Still, the next proof photo showed the back of my jacket at a crosswalk, taken close enough to catch lint on the fabric. I remember thinking, okay, if I sprint right now, would he sprint too? Or would he just smile and let me run because he already knows where I live? I stopped going out. Then I realized staying in didn't fix the biggest problem. My address was out there like a public landmark. Around 7 p.m., someone knocked. Not a casual knock, a hard "I'm here" knock. I froze, stared at the door, then the peephole. A guy with a folder stood too close, glancing up and down the hallway like he was measuring. I didn't open. He knocked again, then tried the handle like it was normal. I backed up so fast I hit the counter and nearly dropped my phone. He left after a minute, and the second he did, my phone lit up again like he'd been waiting on the other side of the door to trigger it. I called the cops, filed reports, did the whole responsible adult thing. I used the words harassment and stalking, and someone got into my building's hallway. The dispatcher sounded bored until I said strangers were trying to show up at my unit. When an officer finally came, he stood in my doorway like he didn't want to step in. I showed him the listing, the photos, the call log that kept scrolling like a slot machine. He nodded, asked if I had an ex, asked if I'd made anyone mad in real life. He told me to change my number, tighten privacy, and call if someone refuses to leave. I asked how I was supposed to make them leave without opening the door. He gave me this blank look, wrote down the URL, and left. That night, I didn't sleep. I checked the peephole until my eye watered. Every hallway sound made my spine lock up. I dragged a chair in front of the door, even though I knew it wouldn't stop someone with a key. Around midnight, the calls stopped, like someone turned a faucet off. The silence felt staged. Like he wanted me to notice, he could control the noise. Next morning, a package showed up with no return address. Inside, a cheap webcam and a printout of my last Discord ban message. Under it, a new link. The box had my name printed clean, not scribbled. It felt official in the worst way, like a bill. I clicked before thinking and saw a live feed of my living room from above the bookshelf. My couch, my desk, my stupid laundry pile, like my own place had turned on me. I stood there, staring at my laptop, staring at my apartment, then staring back at the laptop, trying to catch a difference. There wasn't one. I waved my hand and watched the same motion on screen with no delay. The angle was high, tilted down, wide enough to catch the entryway. The feed had sound, faint but real. I heard my fridge hum through my speakers. That tiny detail made me feel fucking sick because it meant the camera wasn't just there. It was active. It was listening. I tore my apartment apart, found a camera taped behind a vent grate, and felt my stomach twist because it meant he'd been inside while I slept. Not a hacker, a person. The vent was above the bookshelf. One screw sat slightly crooked. I grabbed a screwdriver, hands shaking so bad I kept slipping and popped the grate loose. The tape made that nasty, sticky sound when it peeled. The webcam was jammed in there, lens lined up with the slats like it was made for it. Whoever did it had to stand on my chair, had to reach over my books, had to be in my living room long enough to aim it and test it. I sat down hard on the floor and tried to picture the timing. Me asleep, me in the shower with music on, me taking trash out and letting the door swing shut behind me. The idea that someone could have been in here inches from my toothbrush made my skin crawl like it wanted to leave my body, like I could peel it off and be safer. I stared at the lock like it was a traitor. I checked windows, even though I'm not on a ground floor. I checked the closet like a kid. I called the cops again, and this time I didn't try to sound calm. When they came, they took the camera like it was an inconvenient prop. More questions, more shrugging, more of that tired, don't make it my problem bullshit. They told me they'd look into it. I asked about building cameras. I got the same tired answers about how it's hard to prove, how it's not like TV, how I should document everything. So I moved. I did it fast and ugly. I paid too much for a truck. I called in sick. I threw my life into boxes like I was fleeing a fire. I didn't announce it to anyone. I didn't update anything that could leak. I changed my number. I used a P.O. box. I stayed at a friend's place until the keys to the new apartment were in my hand. The live feed link went dead, and for a couple days, I felt my lungs work again. I told myself maybe he lost interest. Maybe getting inside once was the peak, and now it was over. Then a new Discord account joined my server and posted a single line. My new street name, spelled right. I worked the quiet aisles where nobody goes unless they're lost or hiding. One cart came down tag donation and no catalog. The boxes were taped too neatly, like someone enjoyed sealing secrets. That's what got me. Donations usually look like a bar fight. Torn cardboard, mismatched tape, shit leaking out the seams. This was crisp, straight edges, labels pressed flat like somebody took their time. I slit the tape and lifted the first lid, and it hit me how heavy the box was. Not textbooks heavy, dense heavy, like bricks. Inside were hardbound journals with no titles. Every page was filled, same handwriting, same calm tone. Not diary stuff, logistics. Seat 14C, Tuesdays. Red coat, always alone. Leaves through south stairwell. I flipped faster, hoping I'd find a normal explanation. Some weird research project, anything. It just kept going. Routes, habits, timings. Then photos slipped out, grainy prints of women on campus, taken through glass, taken from behind bushes, taken from inside a car. Each photo had a date and a little check mark. I'm not being dramatic. These weren't candid shots. They were proof of work. A girl at the library entrance with her key card half raised. Check. A girl waiting at the bus stop, looking down at her phone. Check. A girl walking alone at night under the walkway lights, blurred because whoever took it didn't give a fuck about focus, only capture. Check. My stomach did this slow drop like an elevator cable snapped. I kept reading because your brain does that stupid thing where it thinks if you keep scanning you'll find the aha that makes it safe. I didn't. The handwriting stayed clean, controlled, almost polite. Some entries had "no" written hard, like the writer got annoyed. Some had "yes" with the check pressed so deep it dented the paper. Then I hit an entry that made my hands go cold. New girl, late shift, and right under it stacks, lower level. That was me. Not my whole name, but the way staff talk about you when you're the new body nobody remembers yet. I shut the journal so fast the spine cracked. I shoved the photos back in like I could unsee them. I looked down the aisle, expecting someone to be there watching me react. Nothing. Just that basement hum. The air handler pushing cold, stale air through metal, and the quiet that makes every little sound feel too loud. I didn't want that box down there with me, so I hauled it onto my cart and rolled it straight up. I carried one box upstairs to security. The guard rolled his eyes and told me to stop bringing creeper fanfiction. He tried to keep the box in his office instead of calling police. That set off every alarm in my head, so I snapped pictures and emailed them to myself. I watched him handle it, and it made me sicker. He didn't flinch. He didn't go, "What the fuck?" He did this controlled little pause, then slid the journal back like it was routine. He pushed the box behind his desk with his foot like he was hiding it from me, not protecting evidence. I told him to call it in. He sighed and said we don't need to make a thing out of every donation, like I'd brought him somebody's weird erotica. I said there are photos of women being tracked. He said donations get weird, and he hit me again with creeper fanfiction, like saying it twice would turn it into a joke. Then he told me I shouldn't be taking pictures in the office, like my phone was the problem. That's when I knew I couldn't leave it there and trust him. I raised my phone and started shooting pages right in front of him. The checks, the dates, the entry about the stacks, the photo pile. I sent everything to my personal email while I was still standing there because I could feel the moment slipping away, like if I walked out without a copy, it would all vanish and I'd look insane. He told me I was overreacting. I told him he was underreacting. He tried to take the box from me, so I yanked it back and kept my body between him and the journals like I was guarding my own throat. I left with my heart slamming, went back downstairs and did my job because my supervisor doesn't give a shit about your fear, she gives a shit about returns. I called the police myself from the break room, voice shaking, and I gave the address and said they're stalking logs and photos and security has the materials right now. I said that last part on purpose because I wanted it pinned on him. When police finally came, the journals were gone. Security said I misplaced them. My emailed photos were still there, but the metadata had been scrubbed like someone knew exactly how to clean evidence without deleting it. The cops asked me where the originals were, and I pointed at the guard's desk. The guard looked bored and said I brought him some notebooks, got embarrassed, and took them back. He said it like he'd rehearsed it. I told the cops to search his drawer. He said he had personal items in there, and they didn't push, not hard enough. They did that lazy middle ground thing where they nod and write and act like everyone's equally credible. They asked about cameras. The guard said the donation camera was down for maintenance. Of course it was. They asked me if I had the originals. I said no. That's why you're here. They asked if I touched them with bare hands. I said yes because I'm not a fucking crime lab. I'm a library worker. They told me to forward the pictures. I did right there. One of them said they'd follow up. Then they left with nothing because the one thing that mattered had been removed. After they left, the guard watched me like I'd lost. He didn't smile big. He didn't need to. He just looked calm, like I'd done exactly what he expected. I went home and sat in my car in the parking lot longer than I want to admit because I kept checking mirrors and scanning for headlights that weren't mine. In my apartment, I opened my email again and stared at the photos like proof would protect me. That's when I noticed what was wrong. The attachments looked flattened, like they'd been resaved. My phone still showed the time I took them, but the files in my inbox had no device data, no location, no camera info, nothing. Not even basic EXIF. Clean. Too clean. I didn't scrub shit. I wouldn't know how. I changed my passwords. I turned on two-factor. I did it all with sweaty hands and a tight chest. I still got a login alert an hour later from a device I didn't recognize. It didn't even show a location, just unknown. That's when the fear stopped being about the journals and turned into something worse. Someone had touched my stuff without touching my door. The next day at work, my supervisor pulled me aside and hit me with a professional concerned voice. She said I'd caused disruption. She said I should have gone through internal channels before calling police. Internal channels. Like there's a proper paperwork trail for somebody cataloging women. She said security's report didn't match mine. She asked if I was doing okay. She implied I was stressed, dramatic, maybe unstable. I got angry enough to see spots. I told her I didn't misplace anything. I told her someone removed it. She said I was making accusations against staff, and she warned me about workplace behavior. That's when I understood the building was going to protect itself, not me. That afternoon, I started noticing things I'd ignored before. A maintenance guy I'd never seen standing too long near the staff stairwell. A security officer parked where they don't usually park, engine running. The main guard showing up near the stacks entrance like he had business there. I tried to tell myself I was spiraling, but then I found a blank sheet tucked under my wiper in the staff lot. No text, just a single check mark in the same neat ink. I sat in my car with my keys in my fist like that could do anything. I drove home a different way. I didn't stop at the store. I didn't go to the gym. I went straight inside and locked everything. And then I printed my photos at a cheap pharmacy kiosk using a throwaway email because I didn't trust my own accounts anymore. I put the printouts in an envelope and hid them in a cereal box like I was hiding drugs from my own apartment. I started carrying my keys between my fingers walking to my car because it made me feel less useless. I started taking the long public route through the library when I left because the basement felt like a throat and I didn't want to walk through it alone. I kept thinking about the guard's first reaction. Not fear, not disgust, just control, and it made me hate him in a way that sat behind my eyes and pulsed. I wanted to report him to someone higher, but every time I pictured it, I pictured that same office, the same desk, and the same story getting rewritten until I was the problem. I tried to keep my head down and just survive my shifts. I didn't tell co-workers because I didn't want pity and I didn't want someone repeating it in the break room like gossip. I kept working, kept pushing carts, kept scanning barcodes, pretending my hands weren't shaking every time I heard footsteps behind me. 2 nights later, I found a fresh journal on my cart, placed dead center, open to a new page. It had my name, my schedule, and the words "good work" written like a performance review. Courthouses feel safe until you're alone in them. I pushed my cart past closed courtrooms and heard heels behind me. Slow, confident, not a janitor. A man stepped out of the stairwell wearing a lanyard and carrying a folder, like he belonged there. He asked me to open courtroom 3 because he had sealed exhibits. He said like a script. I told him I didn't have keys for that. He didn't argue. He just walked closer, pushing me back toward the dark end of the hall where cameras don't reach. He kept smiling like this was already settled. The smile was the worst part because it wasn't friendly, it was patient, like he'd already decided how this ended, and he was giving me time to catch up. I tried to angle my cart between us, hoping he'd back off when he saw I wasn't stepping aside. He mirrored me. I stepped toward the brighter side of the corridor, toward the clerk offices, toward the one camera that sometimes catches a sliver of the hall. He drifted with me, quiet, heels clicking, eyes on my hands. Then he pulled out a key ring, my key ring, jiggling it like a toy. I left it on my cart for 30 seconds. 30 seconds while I swapped a leaking trash bag by the fountain, coffee sludge running down my glove, me telling myself I'd grab the keys right after I tied the knot. I didn't. He did. It hit me so hard I got this stupid flush of shame, like I'd been caught doing something careless and I deserved whatever came next. That's what he was counting on. Embarrassed people stay quiet. They try to fix it without making a scene. I didn't fix shit. I ran for the main lobby doors and hit the panic bar. Nothing. The bar moved, but the door didn't release. I hit it again, harder, like force could make the hardware remember its job. Still nothing. The glass didn't even rattle. It was held. He'd latched it from the inside with a maintenance lock. Those cheap little metal clamps facilities uses when they prop a door or control a swing. You don't notice them unless you're looking for them, and I hadn't been looking because why would I? He wanted the building quiet, controlled, and me embarrassed enough not to scream. The lobby was wide open and empty, marble and flags and the big seal on the wall, and it suddenly felt like a warehouse after closing. Too much space, nowhere to hide, every sound echoing back at me. I heard his heels cross from the hall into the lobby. Not rushing, not breathing hard. He moved like he had time, like he'd checked which doors were dead and which cameras were blind before he ever stepped through the stairwell. My brain did this fast inventory. Phone in pocket, but no time to unlock. Radio, none. Security desk downstairs, too far. Elevators behind him. The only thing I had was whatever I could grab and the noise I could make. I grabbed the metal, wet floor sign and swung when he reached. It clipped his face, and he stumbled, more pissed than hurt. The sound was ugly, a hollow smack, and I saw the moment his smile dropped. His eyes went flat, focused like the mask came off and the real part finally showed. I didn't wait. I smashed the fire alarm glass with my fist, set the whole place shrieking, and bolted through an emergency exit that finally popped. The glass bit my knuckles and warm blood slicked my fingers, but I didn't feel pain yet, just heat and grip and the need to get outside. Cold air hit me on the steps. I almost slipped because my shoes were wet from mopping and my hand was shaking. I kept moving anyway, down the side stairs and across the lot toward the patrol cars because that was the only place with people at this hour. A deputy was sitting in his unit with the windows up, face lit by his phone. I slapped the glass hard enough to leave a red smear. When he jumped out and saw the strobes flashing inside, he went straight to his radio and his belt like he thought I might be the threat. I didn't even blame him. I looked wild. I was breathing like I'd sprinted a mile and my hand was dripping. They walked me back in, 2 deputies flanking me like I was under arrest, and the sirens made it impossible to think straight. I pointed and talked and tried to keep my voice steady, but the words came out ugly. I kept hearing myself say, he had my keys, he locked the door, he was right there, and it sounded like a kid insisting on a monster. They cleared the lobby, checked the stairwells, checked courtroom 3 like it mattered, checked bathrooms, closets, the jury room, every place a human could duck into. Nothing. No folder. No lanyard. No guy. Cops found no lanyard guy. The lobby door lock was gone like it never existed. One deputy crouched at the latch and rubbed it with his thumb like he expected to find a scratch or a smear of fresh metal. He looked at me like he was deciding whether I was lying or just stupid. They pulled up the camera feeds. The hallway camera doesn't cover the bend. It never has. I complained about it because I'm the one who cleans the spit and gum and mystery streaks in that blind spot. Management always says they'll put in a request. The lobby camera caught me running in, hitting the bar, swinging the sign, yanking the alarm, and then hauling ass out the emergency exit. It did not catch him. If he was there, he was either behind my body at every moment or he knew exactly where to stand. That thought landed like a brick. He knew the building better than I did, or he'd learned it on purpose. My supervisor showed up in a wrinkled shirt, in a bad mood, and immediately tried to make it my problem. He talked over me, over the deputies, over the alarm tech, like he could bully the situation back into silence. He kept saying incident like I'd spilled mop water and it got paperwork on his desk. He asked why I set the alarm off. He asked if I was sure the door didn't open. He asked if I recognized the man. He asked why my keys weren't on my belt. Every question came with that same edge. How are you going to make this stop being inconvenient for me? I held up my hand, knuckles cut, and he barely looked. When I said the guy show me my keys, my supervisor's face tightened like I'd admitted I stole them myself. He told the deputies I've been stressed lately, like that explained a locked exit and a stranger pushing me into a dead hall. After the deputies left, he pulled me into the facility's office and lit into me for making the courthouse look unsafe. He said staff already complains about custodial overreacting. He said if people hear about this, it's going to be a whole thing. He threatened to replace me if I caused drama again. He shoved a blank incident form at me and told me to write it clean, like the words mattered more than what almost happened. His version was basically, employee startled, employee damaged alarm cover, employee created false alarm. He wanted me to sign under it. I refused, and that's when he got nasty. He said I'd be paying for the glass. He said I'd be lucky if the county didn't charge me for misuse of emergency systems. One of the deputies, the older one, pulled me aside and quietly gave me a report number, like a bone tossed to a dog. He didn't promise anything. He just said, keep that number in case it happens again. That sentence again made me feel sick because it told me they were already moving on. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shove my bleeding hand in his face and ask him what part of a locked door and stolen keys sounded like drama. But I also needed my check, so I swallowed it until my throat hurt and I left. I went home with my hand wrapped in paper towels and my head buzzing. The alarm sound didn't stop when I shut my apartment door. It sat behind my eyes. I kept replaying the panic bar, refusing to move the latch, and the way his heels sounded like he was walking through his own living room. I kept thinking about how easy it would have been for him to get me into that blind stretch and how the building would have stayed polite and quiet about it. I showed up for my next shift anyway, because rent doesn't care if you're scared. The lobby smelled like fresh cleaner, like someone tried to scrub the night off the marble. The fire alarm cover was replaced already, shiny new plastic like my fist never broke the old one. My cart was parked where it always is, lined up neat like nothing happened. Next shift, my cart had a folder on it labeled sealed. I stopped so hard the cart wheels squeaked. I looked up at the cameras like they were suddenly going to do something. I looked at the lobby doors, at the stairwell, at the empty hall. Nothing moved. The building felt calm, like it was daring me to be the crazy one again. I picked the folder up with my good hand and carried it into the supply closet and shut the door. My hand shook so bad I fumbled the tab twice. Inside was a single photo of me, taken in that hallway, and a courthouse visitor sticker with my name printed wrong by one letter, close enough to prove he'd practiced.